Hi, I am Carrie and I am an embodied life coach, and I help overwhelmed moms go from complete overwhelm, stress, not knowing themselves, looking to find themselves into a place of inner peace, finding their calm and connecting within. And so today's talk is all about why you're stuck in survival mode as a mom and how to find your way back to yourself. Let me know if this sounds familiar to you. Most of the women that I work with tell me this very specific situation. It's at night, they're about to go to bed, and they're drifting off to sleep, and they start to have these thoughts rolling through their head that they feel like a shell of themselves, a shell of the version of themselves that they used to be. They may go over the events of the day in their head, and they think about the times that they snapped at their kids. They didn't have the patience that they wanted to have. They didn't have the capacity to hold the big feelings. And so they sit in a pattern of guilt. They also have this feeling of going through the motions, but not feeling like they're really present, not feeling like they are showing up as the version of the moms that they want to be. And so if this pattern sounds familiar to you, it's really important to know that nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are just stuck in survival mode. The more that we can understand that this isn't a personal failure and it's more of a nervous system pattern, that can really help reframe what we are looking at here and help us have a little bit more self-love, self-compassion. And from that framework, we're going to be much more able and willing and motivated to make meaningful change in our lives. I want to talk a little bit about survival mode and what that looks like. When you are not giving to yourself, when you are constantly giving to everyone else, prioritizing everyone else, and you are going through the day-to-days of motherhood, which is a very stressful situation, you are putting your nervous system in a very tricky spot. It never has a chance to reset. And so with the overwhelm of motherhood, you are constantly in fight or flight. And when you are in fight or flight, your body is looking at the littlest things as danger. And what I mean by the littlest things, it doesn't mean that they're small in that they don't matter. It means that they are not a bear chasing you. Your life is not at risk. It could be the screeching noises that our children love to make. It could be the spilled juice at breakfast. It could be the frustration when you're trying to get out of the house and that toddler that's just not cooperating. And so, as you see here, there is baseline regulation, and you can see how these waves are bigger, they flow more predictably. And then you can see this chronic overload, wired and tired. And this is the state that most of the moms that I work with are in, where their nervous system is running on overdrive. So again, in baseline, it may take a bigger event or more of an event in order to trigger your nervous system to go into fight or flight. When you are in chronic overload, it can take something super small and you can go straight into stress. It can push you even further into overdrive. What we are trying to do is to spend more time in baseline regulation. That doesn't mean that we're always going to be there, and it's okay. We're not meant to be regulated. The stress response is actually super important, and it keeps us alive, it keeps us safe. So we don't want to get rid of that. It's just that we don't want to spend all of our time in fight or flight. So when we think about symptoms of an overtaxed nervous system in motherhood, it can look like having a bad temper. It can look like mom rage. I hear from moms that they can't focus, they can't think straight. Maybe you identify with that. Some people like to call it mom brain. It can be not enjoying, not being present in the moment. But when we take it to a deeper level, what your body is doing, you are going into sympathetic nervous system activation. So the bad temper, the mom rage, that is a fight response. the mom brain that can't focus. This is really signs of sensory overload, of cognitive fatigue, right? The just endless looping in your brain. And then not enjoying the moment. That can be a freeze response, dissociation, emotional numbness. And so again, it's really looking at these symptoms that are pretty common in most of the women I work with and kind of trying to understand it from a biological perspective. Gabor Mate says that women are society shock absorbers. And I think that is a really great way of describing the part of the problem in society that is leading to this chronic overload in motherhood. And so the key point of all of this is that this is a systemic failure and not a personal failure. And once we are able to recognize that it's not just us, that the fault does not fall all on us, it doesn't take away the load. The load is still there, but it can take away a lot of the shame associated with it, because oftentimes what I hear from moms is they think that it's a personal failing. They think that everyone around them is doing better than them. They compare themselves a lot to other moms, to a lot of parenting things they see on Instagram, the Instagram moms, right, where you're seeing someone's highlight reels. And I think when we go a little bit deeper, we can understand that, one, we never really know what's going on with anyone else, and two, that this is not a personal failing. And so all of these things are contributing to a mom's nervous system. Your partner's stress level, your kids' big feelings. This is a huge one. Motherhood requires so much holding of big emotions, and that can be emotionally activating. You know, there are moments where I just have to tell my kids, like, mommy is getting big feelings right now. Like, I need to go take a break. But sometimes we can't go take a break. Maybe we're driving in the car and our kid is screaming, or, you know, you have a young toddler and you have to just sit with them. And so that is incredibly taxing on anyone's nervous system, especially when you are not giving to yourself and you are yourself are in fight or flight. It's like almost an impossible ask to expect you to be able to regulate first. The mental load, the invisible labor, all the tasks and the tabs that you have running open, keeping everything going, the doctor's appointments, the birthday party invites, you name it. And this cultural pressure and expectations to do it all. I work out with a lot of millennial moms, and I think one thing that if you're a millennial mom, you'll resonate with is this idea that we need to do it all, have it all, be it all. Really brought up in a perfectionist generation, and also a women should be doing everything generation. So all of these things are impacting your nervous system. And parenting is incredibly difficult. Keeping these little beings just alive and well is incredibly taxing on the nervous system. And then you add in all these systemic issues and it just makes it even harder. So one thing that I think is really important to understand is that a lot of advice for overwhelmed moms focuses on the mental aspect. And what I want to drive home here is that while it's important to understand our emotions, it's pretty impossible to think your way out of survival mode. We like to overly intellectualize, overly analyze things, and kind of bypass the wisdom of our bodies. And so in that, we are not addressing a root issue. When you are in constant survival mode, when you are in constant fight or flight, your nervous system, which is a whole body system, is constantly activated. And so the way out of that is also going to include the body. And so this is what I like to tell moms. Meditation, all of these tools are so helpful. But you can't meditate your way out of a society that doesn't support you. You can work with your body instead of against it. So we are not going to meditate and all the problems are going to go away. But bringing the body in, bringing the mind in, we are going to set ourselves up to the best of our ability so that we're able to show up as the best versions of ourselves that we can be. A key part of my work that I do with moms is something that I like to call the practice of gentle devotion. This all starts with this idea that we are not going to shame ourselves into meaningful change. It doesn't work. I get this from moms a lot where I should be meditating every day. I should be, you name it, working out every day, whatever it is. And the problem with the shoulds is that it already sets us up in a deficit. It tells us that it reinforces this idea that we're already not good enough. And the only way to reach meaningful change is going to be to love ourselves into transformation. So this idea of gentle devotion is a shame-free practice that we are bringing in to return to the self. And what it's not is an all or nothing practice. Again, when I work with these moms, I hear a lot of their routines that have failed. And a lot of times it will be too much too soon. They tell themselves that they have to, and I say have to like this because again, it's like a job. It's like something we've assigned ourselves to, and they have to meditate for X amount of minutes every single day, or they have to do this workout every single day, and anything short of that is a failure. And the problem with that is that life happens. And so have you ever had this experience where you take on a new wellness routine and the first couple of days go great, and then by the end of the week, you've completely scrapped it? This happens a lot with New Year's resolutions, right? And part of the problem is that it's this all or nothing mentality, that skipping one day and you scrapped it all, 20 minutes or it didn't count. And so the idea of gentle devotion is that we are going to be returning to ourselves daily, meaningfully, in what we have the capacity for. And so what may be on a lot of days a 7-minute guided Kundalini practice to regulate the nervous system also could be 3-minute short somatic reset on a day where you don't have 7 minutes. Which also could be a breath, hand on your heart and hand on your belly, connecting within. This right here is the key to the transformation that I see in the women I work with. And oftentimes I'll get a pushback initially. Oh, but is that enough? They always want to know, is that enough? And my response is always, you can always do more. But what we are going to be doing with this is we are under-promising and over-delivering. So there is going to be a minimum in there that you can literally do anytime. Anytime. And it counts. Because what happens when we over-promise, when we don't follow through with what we say we're going to do, is that we start to teach ourselves not to trust ourselves. And once we start to keep our word to ourselves, do the things we say we're going to be doing, which is much more achievable when you have something that is so easy to accomplish, you start building on that. It starts gaining momentum. You learn to trust yourself. And single breath, connecting to your inner spirit, your inner knowing every single day will always be more meaningful than a longer practice you only do once in a while, or that you quit on because you couldn't keep up with. And so again, this is the minimum. You can always do more. So what starts happening when you start to regularly connect with yourself is that you're going to start to recognize some of your somatic clues. A lot of women I work with come in very disconnected from their bodies. And as a society, we are very disembodied. I spoke about it earlier, but we are very focused on the mental body and we very much neglect the physical body. Some examples of some somatic clues that you may start to recognize when you start doing the work will be things like the monkey mind. You're going to feel the scattered energy, the excitement, the confused feeling, it could be like racing thoughts, like the really scattered energetic feeling in your mind. In your heart space, you may feel some emotional turbulence. This can show up as a tension in your neck or shoulders. You may even notice that you have more of a difficulty expressing yourself. And then in the lower portion of the body, you can feel restless, you can feel stubborn. This can also show up a little bit as like a low-lying anxiety, kind of like feeling in your stomach. What I want to say about this is that this is going to be different for every person. So while these are some examples, what shows up in my body may be very different than what shows up in yours. What shows up in your friend's body may be very different than what shows up in yours. And the way that we describe it may be very different. So part of this is really an experimentation. It's really starting to connect with ourselves. And once we start to understand ourselves, we start to notice the patterns, we're really going to gain some valuable information. And this chart really will start to be very specific to you. So after clients I've worked with have started to regulate their nervous systems and started to get more in tune with their bodies, then we really will focus on what I like to call becoming her. And becoming her is a version of yourself. It is the mom that you want to be, the mom that you know you can be, this future version of you that you are becoming. Some people call this manifestation. I have some issues with the word manifestation because I think that it can signal acquiring material goods. That's a lot of the way that we think about it. But deep down, this is manifestation work. And what I mean by that is that what we repeat is what we become. The patterns that we do, the way we show up every day, the thoughts that we have is the version of ourselves that we're becoming. So if we have a version of ourselves that is calm, that is steady, then there's probably certain thoughts that version of ourselves has. There's certain habits that version of ourselves has. There's a way that version of ourselves responds. And so it is a practice in embodying that version of you that you are becoming. And connecting to that version, and then every day working on making moves from that version of yourself. And that version of yourself is also the mom that doesn't abandon yourself. And so what I want you to take away from this is that you do not have to figure out this all alone. That we aren't meant to figure this out all alone. That motherhood, we were meant to mother in villages. We were meant to have support, emotional support, physical support. And so the support that I provide is for the mom who is tired of doing this alone. And the mom that is ready to feel better, that is ready to feel different, that wants to show up as the mom with capacity, with presence. The mom that is regulating herself so that she can help regulate and be there and hold for her child. And so I would invite you, if that is you, a couple of ways to work further in this would be the 4-minute reset. It is a quick audio-based somatic reset. All you have to do is click on the link and it will take you to the 4-minute reset. And that's a really good place to start. It is a short practice. It'll bring you into your parasympathetic nervous system, providing calm. And then you'll start to envision, do a little bit of this future self work, all in 4 minutes. It's such a great practice. I love it. The other opportunity would be if you want to go a little deeper, if you want to have a container and a coach and work with a mom that has been there. That's the work that I do with my 6-month coaching container, where we really go deep into the work. It starts with somatic work to regulate the nervous system, really grounding, We do work with the Enneagram, looking at who we are, what our patterns are, where we go in stress, where we go in points of growth, and how that understanding of ourselves can help us have more compassion for ourselves, which again, compassion needs to be there for us to grow. And then we also really focus on this future self work, this version of ourselves that we are becoming. Who is she? What does she do? What are her hopes and dreams? And you don't have to have all the answers. It's an evolution, but it is a beginning of starting to take steps toward this version of yourself that you are becoming. So if you're interested in that, you can book a consult, and I would love to chat with you more about it. If you have any questions, you can always send me a DM. Thank you so much for being here today. This was very, very meaningful, and I just want you to know that you are not alone, that you are doing a wonderful job. You are a great mom. Thank you so much.